Premiere Pro is a highly customizable video editor, and in this video, I'm going to be showcasing to you all of the preferences that I switch from their default settings to make me a more efficient and faster editor. If that is something that you're into, like Premiere Pro tutorials and gear reviews, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let's get right into it. The first thing that I always change is how these waveforms appear in a sequence on your editor. They are by default rectified audio waveforms. Now, I have a background in Pro Tools and audio engineering, and in Pro Tools, waveforms don't look like this. So if you want to change that, you can go up to your sequence menu right here, these little 3 bars, and right here is rectified audio waveforms. So click that. Voila. Now your waveforms appear in the middle. Next, let's go ahead and change some settings in the actual preferences menu. So we're going to go up to Premiere Pro, Preferences, and I like to start with Timeline. Sticking with the audio, I like to change my audio transition default duration to 2 frames. The reason I like 2 frames is because when I am highlighting multiple clips on the timeline and I do the keystroke Shift-Command-D on Mac, and I believe that's Shift-Control-D on Windows, that creates a short crossfade in between the 2 clips that will get rid of any pops or clicks. Going back to Premiere Pro Preferences, let's do autosave. By default, Premiere Pro will automatically save every 15 minutes and a maximum of 20 project versions. What that means is in your project folder for Premiere Pro, when you click on this autosave folder, as you can see over here, it's been saving every 15 minutes. Once Premiere Pro autosaves for the 20th time, on the 21st time, it's going to go back and overwrite your oldest project file in the autosave folder. What I like to do is automatically save every 7 minutes and do a maximum project of 75. Now, this is with me, and that's because 15 minutes, if you really know what you're doing in Premiere Pro, you can get a lot done. And I don't want something to happen where Premiere Pro crashes and it's at the 14th minute. That could mean a lot of material that I've lost. So I like to do every 7 minutes and maximum project versions 75. The biggest thing for me is importing my customized keyboard shortcuts. Go up to Premiere Pro, keyboard shortcuts, and here in the keyboard shortcuts menu, they don't make this easy for you. If you needed to import your shortcuts, you would bring them into this folder. On my computer, it goes through Adobe Premiere Pro 14.0, Creative Cloud, Mac. Inside that Mac folder are the keyboard shortcuts. You would paste your keyboard shortcuts into here and then reopen your keyboard shortcuts, and in this drop-down menu, you'll then find your keyboard shortcuts. I have a whole video on how to import your keyboard shortcuts into Premiere Pro, and I'll link it here on the screen, put it in the description as well. One preference that I'm constantly switching on and off is selection follows playhead. As I scroll here, notice as the clips highlight wherever the playhead is, it's selecting the clips at the playhead. But if you don't want your computer to do this, you could go up to Sequence and uncheck selection follows playhead. I've mapped this action to a keyboard shortcut to make this process faster for me. Next, let's look at our buttons underneath the program window. If you don't know about it, here is the little plus button, and you can customize how these show up on Premiere Pro. So hit that little plus button, and the ones that I like to bring in are safe margins. So you're gonna click and drag that on, and your proxies, toggling them on and off. Some other ones that may be useful to you are show guides and rulers. So let me show you what those are. If you were to turn rulers on, obviously it brings in rulers, but if you were to click and drag, now you can bring some guides onto your screen like this, and maybe you might need something like that. What safe margins does is make sure that any title that you put in these lines will then show up on the TV. It's just a nice little guide for editors to look at in order to frame their lower thirds correctly on screen. Another thing that I change is my export frame. I'll click on export frame here. What it normally is DPX, and I switch it over to JPEG and hit OK. The last one is the toggle proxies. And if you don't know what proxies are, they're basically miniature versions of a full resolution video file, and they stand in place so you can edit faster on slower computers in Premiere Pro. Very, very cool stuff. And if you want to learn more about it, I'll link a video on the screen. Next, with audio, I want to make sure that my audio interface is set up correctly. I use an audio interface, the Zoom H6. So I go up to File, Preferences, Audio Hardware, And this will look different for everyone, but I make sure that my H6 is selected for my default input and then whatever your output may be. But the big thing that I want to make sure with my audio tracks is with this little microphone here, my voiceover record settings are set to my source, the H6. I've done this a couple times on accident where I was recording my VO into the desktop microphone and not the audio interface. So if you do utilize a interface, make sure that this is all set up correctly. Another thing that people may not think about is scrolling. And with mine, I actually set up my mouse. So my thumb buttons right here will move my sequence window from the left or to the right, depending on how I hit the buttons. I have a whole video tutorial already on how I scroll through footage faster and this mouse setup if you want to click the video in the corner, or I'll put that in the description. Another thing to try out too, if your mouse doesn't have these little side scroll buttons that you can customize, in Premiere Pro, Preferences, Timeline, you look at this timeline mouse scrolling, you could switch this to horizontal, hit OK, and I'll show you what that does. It's the same exact thing. So instead of going up and down in your sequence window, you can go side to side when you scroll up or down on your mouse like this. That may work for you, or it could be really annoying, but try it out. That's only if you don't have these available. I highly suggest mapping your scrolling to your mouse. But I would love to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you switch in Premiere Pro that I may be able to utilize and become a more efficient editor from now on? If you like all things video tech and video editing, and you like my tutorial style, hit that subscribe button, and I'm sure there is a video on screen right now that you would also love to click. Until that video that you're going to watch, my name's Javier Mercedes, and I hope you're out there living a life of abundance.